Good morning, everyone. This is James from Leverage Technologies. Today, we're going to be talking about sales orders and the features surrounding sales order entry and maintenance. So what we want to do today is create some awareness of some of the not so well-known features so you can become more effective users of SAP Business One. So we'll go through a range of topics today around the entry of the order, some customer-related areas, and looking at the whole supply chain and how supply and demand work with one another in order to service your customers. All right, so from here, what I'll do is just recap the topics that we're going to cover today. So, as I've mentioned, what we're going to talk about is the effective ways of raising a sales order. So if you're already an SAP Business One user and you raise orders, you already know how to navigate some areas of the system to raise a sales order, but I just want to create a bit of awareness of some other techniques of raising a sales order, and potentially you can incorporate that as part of your knowledge of SAP Business One. The next area is just maintaining the customer information and then obviously keying content into the sales order. Methods of handling that, and again, showing you some not so well known areas of the system so you can take away and start using that. From there, we'll look at looking at customer history, their current account balance, their sales history, if they have any special pricing or price lists that we need to look into before we raise an order. We'll look at that, and then we'll drill into some tools and features around inventory availability. From there, we'll have a discussion around due dates and why, when we're talking about inventory and perpetual inventory, why due dates are important in order to better service your customers and provide insight for your users to make the right decisions for your customers and give that exceptional service. From there, at the end of the session, we'll have a Q&A session. What I would like to ask is if you use the chat box within the GoToMeeting, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat box as they come up, and we'll address them. We'll try and answer them at the end of the session. Okay, so from here, what we'll do, I'll jump into SAP Business One. And what we have here is the SQL version of SAP Business One. For those sites, our leverage customers that are using HANA, what we'll be covering today is applicable for the HANA version as well. So it shouldn't be too bad. It'll be just a different user interface that you're used to if you're on the HANA environment. This is also on the latest version of SAP Business One. So if you find any features and functions that I've demonstrated today that's not on yours, you might be on a later, the feature might be a later version as part of a later feature set. So talk to our support team about options of getting access to the latest version of SAP Business One. All right, so from there, what I like to go into is the methods or techniques of raising a sales order. So what you're probably familiar with is using the modules screen. So using the module screen, you can go into Sales AR and then simply click on a sales order, and that opens up the sales order screen. So that's probably one method that you're used to. The other option is using the drop-down menu, going to modules, Sales AR, and sales order, which are perfectly fine. Gets you to where you're going. I guess what I want to show today is a few other ways. If you're a frequent user that a user that frequently opens sales orders, let's try and find ways of making so you don't have to make as many clicks in order to get to the area of the sales order. So the first option is to modify your cockpit. So first of all, to have this feature, you have to have the cockpit enabled in your system, which is a fairly straightforward exercise. So if it isn't enabled, talk to our support team and they'll enable it for you. But from there, what you need to do is go to the widget gallery and look for the common functions. So what you need to do here is simply click and hold and drag, And what that does is open up a new window in the cockpit area of the screen. Now, it's currently blank. What you need to do is then populate it with the shortcuts that you'd like. So since we're talking about sales orders today, I'll go back to my module screen, sales AR, and then find sales orders, and it's the same steps again as you click and hold, and then you drag it across, and then sales orders becomes an option under common functions. So when you first log on in the morning, on your home screen of your cockpit, you'll see this option here, sales order. I can click on that, and that will take me to the sales order screen. This is applicable to all modules or all screens in the system. So if you want to go into business partners or incoming payments or inventory, you can just do the same thing time and time again. So that's the first option. The next option is to use the search bar at the top right here. So typically it will default to searching the system for either master data or documents in the system. There is an alternate search here. So if you hit the magnifying glass and change it to search menus, you can change that to look at the menu, and you can start typing in sales order, and then you can find that sales orders appear here. You click on that, and again, it will open up the sales order screen. So that's another approach. Once you do that, you can then simply just click on that screen there, and then you can hit sales order again. So the system will remember what your common searches are, and that will drill through to the sales order again. Another technique is using the function buttons. So function buttons are widely used throughout the system, and you can create custom function buttons. So we're talking about the F keys up on the top of your keyboard, F1, F2, F3, F4. What we can do is set that function button to a shortcut to access a particular screen in SAP. So to access that screen, you go to Tools, My Shortcuts, and then you go to Customize. So what you have here is a customized screen, and what you first need to do is nominate a function button that you'd like to use to access sales orders. So I'll choose F6, and then what I do on the bottom here is then I click on Sales AR, and then on the right hand side I go Sales Order, and then I go Allocate. Now F6 has been allocated to sales orders. So if I go OK on this now, I can then go F6 on my keyboard, and then it opens up there. So again, this is for sales orders, but you can use it for purchase orders, business partners, all the areas of the system. So trying to use the keyboard as much as possible rather than keyboard and mouse. So that's a great option. The last option is to actually drill into the customer itself. So if I look for a customer using the search key up the top here, so I want to search for topicware, I press enter. What I can do once I'm in the actual customer record, there's an option down the bottom right called You Can Also. So I see all the options that I have available there, and I can also create a sales order. So what that will do is when I do this, it will pre-populate the fields within the sales order. So that will save a couple of steps there if you first drill into the customer. So before I actually go into keying in the sales order, let's talk about the customer itself. So if you receive a purchase order from your customer or a phone call, it's always probably a good idea just to look at the customer record, just to inform yourself about the customer and what their current status is. So if you're an existing SAP Business One user, this is all pretty straightforward information on the General tab. So obviously we've got the name and the ABN information, phone numbers and emails. This is all pretty standard stuff that you would expect in any system. And then you also have access to drill into their account balance. So I have a summarized totals up the top here for account balances, deliveries and orders. I can then drill through to the account balance, and then I can see the full history as far as accounts receivable is concerned for this particular customer. I can always hover over the transaction, so you will see golden arrows throughout the system, and the option to hover before you drill through gives you a bit more information, and this can be configured. Alternatively, you can drill through to the source transaction and find more information around that particular transaction. More options on the screen up the top right. You can just change the display to show unreconciled items only. So those are the open items. So invoices that haven't been offset by a credit or a payment. Anything that's got an open balance due. So I have the 124K outstanding, which is displaying at the bottom at the moment, and that gives me an idea of the topic ware's existing or current position. I've also got options down the bottom right to do internal reconciliation, so that's when I want to reconcile a payment to an invoice or a credit to an invoice, those sort of things. I've also got the ability to quickly run a aging report as well. So this will go into the customer receivables aging report and pre-populate the code. So the customer code for topicware, I can run that, and then it will give me the aging breakdown for this particular customer. So it's pretty easy to find out more information regarding the customer. From the customer, I can drill through and find out more information. I can see, I'm back at the business partner, I can drill through to see what open deliveries there are, and there's currently one. I can then, again, hover over it and find out more information. Sorry guys, just mute yourselves if you've just joined, just so we don't have any interference. Thanks. So I can see delivery information. I can also drill into orders, so I can see what existing open orders are already there before I start keying a new one, just so if I'm having a conversation with a customer, we can discuss the existing open orders and give them back order updates if need be. And then we have other information. Other key areas is obviously addresses. So if on the purchase order, there's a particular address that doesn't exist in our SAP Business One system quite yet, it'd be a good idea to update this in against the customer before going ahead and creating the new sales order. So if I quickly create one now, so I'll say warehouse Bondi. So I'll call it High Street. Good if I could spell. Cool. So that was fairly straightforward. I update that against the customer record, and now that's permanently there. That will just streamline sales order entry in the future if it's a setup against the master data rather than manually keying it out every time we receive a new purchase order from our customer. Next area is obviously payment terms. So just quickly checking things like their credit limit. So at the moment, this customer has 150K credit limit and they've got 124K outstanding. So it's good to be aware of that. And then they have a commitment level of 210. So they're all within that guideline. So we should be fine to raise this order without any credit issues. So that's that. Other areas is obviously sales analysis. So you've got the graphs here that allow you to drill through and do sales analysis. Another option is to use what we call drag and relate, which is a tool that sometimes gets skipped or overlooked. So what drag and relate is being able to combine a bit of information from the screen against a transactional document in SAP Business One. In order to do that, you go to your main menu and you'll see on the left-hand side here, I've got drag and relate. So when I click on that, it gives me another menu structure. And what I want to do is compare topicware. I just want to quickly look at topicware's sales history. And to do that, I can click and hold the card code or the customer code, and then the field will highlight. And then I drag that across to the particular document I want to analyze. So if I click on AR invoice, that will show me all the previous AR invoices for topicware. Alternatively, if I want a bit more detail, I can go into AR invoice detail. So that will display the actual content of the order. So the products that were on those invoices that were before. So I can look at this. I can obviously export to spreadsheets. I can do filtering. There's a whole bunch of options here. So that can sometimes be a good feature on the fly to quickly run a report. I've got card code information and I want to just quickly see the sales history. Other things that I need to create awareness of is just the right-click contextual search, or contextual options, I should say. So when I right-click, I have a few other options. I've got the option to remove the business partner or duplicate it, but I also have the ability to look at special prices that have already been set up against the customer. So if I click on special prices, I see the list of items that we have special prices for. So we currently have 25 items that have special prices, and I can see the discounts that have been applied and other things here. So obviously this is something that can be maintained in the future or going forward, based on those commercial agreements that you have with your customer. So this is a good area to keep updating rather than ad hoc discounting. You set predefined discounts, and that makes order entry a whole lot quicker. Other things that can really help, sometimes customers will send purchase orders with their own order numbers, product codes and item codes and what have you. And what SAP can do is actually capture that information, so you can, if they say a widget and you call it a thingamabob, you can set that up in the system so there's no confusion. And in order to do that, you just do the right click and then you drill into business partner catalog numbers. So I have a few of these set up in the system. So we call the Enduro wheel IM1091, but they call it this reference here. So that will really help entry. There's no confusion if this is all set up in the system. Data entry accuracy, those sort of things. One last thing which can be very handy are these 4 fields down the bottom of the screen, which can be contextual based on the sales order you're in. So, okay, what does that all mean? So what this allows me to do is select fields from the customer record or the business partner record and drag them into the 4 fields on the bottom of the screen or on the footer of SAP Business One. So to show that, similar to click and drag, I click and hold the field, and then I drag it down on top of the field that I'd like. And then I can see that the field, that value that I've clicked and dragged, which was the account balance, now appears on the footer of the screen. So this can be handy during sales order entry, such as the remarks. So this remarks field is a short 100-character remarks field. The reason for this is so it can be populated on these fields here. So I can click and hold this, and then I will drag that down to the 4 fields down the bottom of the screen, and now I can see that information there. So I've got up to 4 options. So maybe I want the email address, the account's email address as well. Click and drag on that, and now that appears there. So that can be handy bits of information. So especially the remarks field. So if there's, every time you raise an order and there's some sort of note that the SAP Business One user needs to be aware of, it's a good idea to use that field, and then they see the information appearing there. Okay, so from here what we'll do is actually raise a sales order. So what I'll do is create sales order from the business partner record, and then I'll start keying an order. So obviously I've got the customer information pulling through, and then I have the contact person. So I've got Peter and Tom, but I've just received this order from Jim. It's always recommended that you keep the contact information in SAP Business One as up to date as possible. So if people from your customer come and go, sending them to inactive and those sort of things. And it's a fairly straightforward exercise to update. So I can hover over the contact person. It gives me information about Peter. I can obviously then drill back into the record and then fill in a new contact. So I've got Jim Jones. So I can then go through and fill out as much information I have at this point in time. I've got his email address. And then I can update that in the system. One thing to be aware of is that when I do add that, it doesn't appear automatically on the drop down. What you need to do is hit this button on the right hand side, and then I can then add Jim Jones to the sales order. So Jim Jones comes through. From there, I'm entering their purchase order number, so purchase order 1234, and then I I typically recommend that you enter in the header information, so make sure that you've got all the right address information correct first. So we entered in that new address, so I'm going to use the warehouse in Bondi for the address first, and then I'll say yes, I do want to update the existing records, so that speeds that entry up. If there's any remarks, so I'm keying in the order, and if there's some special notes that need to be relayed to your warehouse or logistics team, down the bottom right of the logistics tab is the pick and pack remarks, so always a good idea to enter information there for dispatch. Accounting, so again this is information drawn from the business partner records, so they had 90-day payment terms, so that pulled through. If I can override that if necessary at a document level if there's some unique circumstances. And then I have more information here. I've also got the ability to attach the purchase order. So if they've given you an electronic copy via email or some other means, you can always attach the sales, their purchase order to our sales order. And that's a fairly straightforward exercise. What I can do is browse the network for the order. So I've got topic where purchase order 1, 2, 3, 4 here. I can attach that, and then that hard copy or that document that we've received from our customers then attached to the record in SAP. Always a good idea to do that sort of stuff. So that's all fairly straightforward. So from there we'll start keying information against the order. So what I'll do is, so I see on the order that I've got a white helmet. So I can, under the item description, I can type in white, and then it will come up with anything with the phrase white within the description of the item, and then I've got the white helmet there. So that's one way of searching the system for products. I've also got the ability to search by item code or barcode, or the business partner catalog code, which I just haven't exposed here. The next is obviously typing in the quantity. The pricing is being pulled through from the customer record based on the price list they're attached to, and then the warehouse is defaulting to Sydney because me as the user, I've been set up as the Sydney as the default. If from time to time you are drawing inventory from different warehouses, if you have a company that has multiple warehouses, sometimes a good idea before you do the data entry is to go up the top here to form settings and change your default from Sydney to one of the other warehouses that you've set up. So rather than retyping, like overriding at a line level the warehouse, you can do it at a header level, and then that will default through. You'll also see a few other document options here for sales employees and commissions. So these can be the header defaults before you start, or the document defaults before you start keying in the content of the order. All right, so what I have here is a white helmet. I've got a quantity of 20, but then I see that we've only got 16 on hand, and we've already got 96 committed, and we've got 120 coming in on order, so on a purchase order or production order or whatever is going to replenish the stock. What I can do is if I do a control tab on the warehouse, so I've got my cursor in the warehouse, I've got control tab, it will then show me all the other stock availability in the system. So I can see that Brisbane has 10, our distribution centre has 40, and Sydney has 40 as well. So I can override that if necessary. So I can just select the warehouse I want to change it to and then go choose. And that will be pulled through. Another thing is the delivery date. So it's always a good idea to set the delivery date to something reasonable other than just putting in today's date. And the system can assist you with that information, with setting that date. So with this particular example, it's pretty straightforward. There's 40 on hand, there's nothing committed, so this could be dispatched immediately. So I can put into today. A quick key for that is just typing D for today or day, and then that will pull through. So I can continue putting in the information. So the next item is a cafe city bike, and he wants 10 of those. And I can see that this the font on the unit price is set to blue, so there must be a special price behind this. So that's being pulled through by the special prices behind that business partner that I showed earlier. So that's pulling through. But if Jim, he's asking for a better price on this particular Cafe City bike, what you can do is on the unit price to a control tab again, and then it will show me all the previous prices that we've given to them. So if you're an organization that every order gets negotiated, or you have some flexibility with the pricing, the last prices report can be quite handy. It will show you all the previous prices that were given for this item for that customer, and it also shows special prices that also apply. So at the moment we're just giving him a 1% discount on this item, so that might give us some flexibility there if we want to give an additional discount. Maybe before we give them any additional discount, we can drill into the gross profit section of the system. So I can right click on the screen and go into gross profit and see the margin that we're making on particular items. So we're making a pretty healthy margin on the Cafe City bike, so maybe we can give them an additional discount. So quickly making decisions on the fly, and that information is all readily at hand within the sales order. So 10 of that, and I'll just leave that against the Sydney warehouse. And then he wants some wheels as well. So if I type in wheel, it will come up everything through again. He wants 5 of those, and that's pretty straightforward. Obviously there's a lot of information that can be exposed on the sales order if you're familiar with form settings. So I can right click on the grid and change the form settings. So this is the ability to add additional columns to the screen, so I have more information at hand. So you're seeing that there are tens and tens of fields that can be pulled through as a default for you as the user. Otherwise, the alternative is just a one-off. You can do a quick key of Control L, and that will show me all the information that can be exposed on that particular sales order line. So I can see the length and the dimensions, the weights, volumes, things like the dimension settings. So this is relating to financial information. This is all being being fed into the sales order, but currently suppressed from the user interface. So Control L is a useful way of finding out more information. Other right-click options are available to promise. So when I click on that, I can see all the supply and demand within the system for this particular item behind that warehouse. So I see that I have 24 available on hand. I see that there's another customer order for 36, and then we have a purchase order here for Buy Tigers coming in a couple of days ago. So this is all important information if you're communicating with your customer, giving them the right information and setting the right expectations when the orders will be dispatched and those sort of things. So available to promise is a very important part of the system. One last thing is that you can also add text. So any information that you want to relay back to the customer, such as thanks for your order or anything more important, you can add a text line from the type column, and then that will draw through. So from there, I can then look at the summary information. So I can see that by default there was $10 freight, but based on the weights and dimensions of the particular order, that might need to be changed. So to do that, I can right click and look at the volume and weight calculation of this particular order. So obviously behind the item masters, we've filled in this information of the volume and the weights. So I can see that this order is 1.46 cubic meters and a weight of 140 kilograms. 160, sorry. So that might tie into what freight we may need to charge the customer to get it to their location. So that's good information. I can then drill into the freight section. So since this order is of a significant size, we can't use standard freight. We have to use bulk freight, and then I can just put in the value that we need to charge the customer to get the goods to their doorstep. So I can update that, and that comes through on the screen against the order here. I can then add this to the system. and then press OK. Oh, and I haven't populated delivery date, so I'll update that. So I'll say that this is going to be dispatched on the 30th, and then I go add. So this will then add it to the system, and then it will put the commitment into the system. So other things that are a good idea are previewing, sending a order confirmation to the customer. So I can preview the order here and send it through, just as some sort of means of communicating, hey, we've received this order, and it's a crystal report, so that can be customized. Other good ideas is if you've interacted with the customer is new activities. So if you've given them a back order update or anything like that, it's always a good idea to update the system via an activity for that communication. So you can set up okay, I had a phone call with Jim, and it was regarding back order. So contacted Jim regarding order for back order. So that's set up in the system, and that just gives some history around the interactions with the customer. Always a good idea. So I can add that, and then that's fine. So from there, obviously the dispatch or the supply chain will continue. So depending on your setup of the SAP system, you might raise a pick list or to notify the warehouse that an order has come in. You can also convert it to a delivery immediately, and the goods go out, and then that will obviously decrease the stock on hand and those sort of things. So those are the areas that I wanted to cover today. Hopefully there was some good information there for you to use, take away, and incorporate as part of your use of SAP Business One. So at this point in time, I'll probably just look at the chat box. So if you've got any questions, just please enter something in the chat so I can respond to it. So I've got a question here about the function keys. So about, is it set across the system or for each individual user? So it's set per individual user. So every individual user can set up their own function keys based on their preferences. So you know, F6 I think was for sales order for my particular user, but that won't then apply to someone else in the system. So it's a user-defined feature. So hopefully that answers that. So the next question is setting up discounts. Set up discounts for a particular business partner without setting up a price list. Yes, you can. You need at least one price list in the system, but when you actually configure a special price, so I'm going back into the business partner record and going to special prices. Everything in this special prices area is referencing the retail price list. If you change this to without price list, that won't reference a price list. So this will just be a net price. It won't be a discount percentage. It will just be the net price that you're going to give that customer. So hopefully that answers that question. The next question is regarding business partner catalog numbers in the report, or is it a variable field? Can we use the business partner catalog number in the report, or is it a variable value? It is a variable value because it combines both the customer and the product to then get to that result. It obviously can be displayed on the sales order or invoice because the combination of the customer and the item obviously exist. I guess it depends on the reporting. If the logic there of the combination of the customer and the product exists, you could bring through the business partner catalog number on reports and forms. So that should be fine. So the next question, do I have a summary guide on the training just performed? So what I've done is recorded this session, and we'll be posting that on to YouTube shortly. So if any people weren't able to attend today, we'll send an email out with the information to access that YouTube clip. So hopefully that will be sufficient. There's obviously plenty of standard guides available, which you can contact our support desk for. But for this year, we've just gone ahead with just recording this particular session. All right, so there's a few more questions here. I've just noticed that we've run over time. What I'll do is, if you don't mind, if you've got a lot more questions, just contact me directly or through the support desk. Our contact information is on the slide here. So we've got the 1300 number. We've also got the email and website. So if there's any more information you would like or any hands-on assistance, please contact our support desk and they will be able to help you out. All right, so I guess I'd like to thank everyone for attending today. Hopefully that was, again, useful and you can take something away from this 30-minute session and hopefully become a more effective user of SAP Business One. All right, so hope everyone has a good day and yeah, thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to learn new smart ways to grow your business. You can also check out our blog and follow us on Twitter to learn more and stay up to date. Thanks for watching and see you next time.